I'll look in a minute. All right, good afternoon. We have reached 1 o'clock, which is our set time for the work session. And I'm going to go ahead and call this work session to order. The city attorney is going to be a little bit late to this meeting, so I'm going to shuffle some of this stuff around. And it looks like most of the first quarter of this agenda. Are these mics on? Can you all hear me? I mean, I talk loud anyway, but can you all hear me? Because I can't hear it. Normally I do hear it. So let's go down and we will, so community development, Tracy Jarvis is here. Wait, where's Tracy? Okay. But Ron is not, correct? That is correct. Now, all of these items, except for the adoption of the meeting schedule for P&Z, they all have a public hearing. So what I'm going to do is just get you to briefly introduce each of these items, and we'll see if there are any questions at this stage. And then we'll take up the adoptions of the meeting schedule for P&Z. So come on up. Let's do item B1, AUP Enterprises doing business as Mirror Lake Wine and Spirits. This is an application for a distilled spirits retail license. This item has a public hearing, so we'll take this up in the regular session. It can't be part of the consent agenda, which, by the way, before we get started, we have a pretty lengthy work session agenda. I want to do the best I can to get us through this pretty quickly, and let's try to get the best, most comprehensive consent agenda we can get, because our evening is also pretty packed, okay? So with that, Nairi, would you go ahead and present that first item for us?
What is that item?
All right, hold on. Oh, item B1.
B1?
AUP Enterprises doing business as Mirror Lake Wine and Spirits. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council people, and those in attendance. AUP Enterprise LLC doing business as Mirror Lake Wine and Spirits. This is one of two of the items for proposal of the new distilled package retail license permit. You just want me to read this form like you normally do, or it's kind of lengthy?
Well, it's kind of, so just tell us what we're doing here.
Okay, so basically this is the first submission for the, distilled package store, the actual wholesale package store. This is one of two. There were three approvals, but one of two will be presented towards council for the actual licensing, to receive their license. Both of these establishments have to be constructed, so it is like, preliminary pretty much, but they have, the applicants have submitted themselves. This particular applicant submitted itself for so all of the preliminary approvals are in place as far as criminal background check from the police department, and Ron, from my understanding, Tracy and the attorney, Mecklin, has reviewed items as far as like construction and building, and when we get through providing council approved, then they will go to the building construction phase.
Okay, so let me see if I can summarize it a bit. So the first two items B1 and 2, these are applications for distilled spirits under the new
Under the new
ordinance.
Yes.
There are actually three of these, though.
Yes.
Correct. These two are being presented today because they need to be constructed. So there's a different process for them.
Right.
A third one will be presented separately because that structure already exists.
It's already existing.
These three already meet all of the qualifications of the ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is with site, location, how
location.
close it is. All right. So, council, each one of these items will come up tonight in a public hearing. So given that information, is there any questions for either of items B1 or B2 right now for Nairi? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move that over to the regular session tonight because there'll be a public hearing on it. Let's go to B3, RA-06-22, 1739 Carrollton Villa Rica Highway. This is a rezoning from AG to SFA, single family attached. There'll also be a public hearing on this item tonight. Let me get you to go ahead and introduce it. It's Nick?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
That's interesting.
Yes, sir.
Let's
Fill
do
in
it.
where I can, right? This item is involving Highlands Residential, who seeks a rezoning from a single-family agricultural to a single-family attached, This company is actually, or developer actually requested that we table this item until the next council meeting.
Well, you did a good job on that.
There-
You
thank
came
you
all
very
up
much.
like you were about to present it.
I mean, it's all about
And all you
appearance,
really
right?
wanted to do was table it.
Yes,
I
sir.
think we can handle that.
All right.
So we got Sarah filling in for the clerk today. So, Madam Clerk, will you make that note on the regular agenda? All right, item B4, amendment to Section 2, administration of the City of Villa Rica zoning code. There's also a public hearing on this, and I guess Tracy's going to do this one. Y'all are trying to play musical chairs today.
We are. We all want some camera time.
I got you. You hear that, Joel? Make sure they're on camera. Get real close. right,
Good
go ahead.
afternoon, Mayor and Council. So we're going through our zoning ordinance. We're in Section 2, cleaning up some language that needs to be in line with all of our ordinances. Section 2 of the zoning code, dealing with the Planning Commission, City Council, and Community Development Director subsections. So this was heard before the Planning Commission at the last Planning Commission. Approval with was 5-0 with the conditions that they still didn't agree with the last time that that some of their stuff got taken off. Their authority to vote on variances and whatnot, but I told them that we would make that statement, but it was still approved by them 5-0. But if we get into a few sections in here, Section 202, subsection 9, 6, decisions, and this has to do with the planning commissions. We're striking that from our zoning ordinance. It says decisions, approval, or deny plats and amendments to the plats with the Georgia Planning Act. That's the job of the city council, not the planning commission, so that's why we're striking that out of our zoning ordinance on that one. And then if we go on to Section 203, subsection 2H, there's some verbiage in here with a administrative and plat committee, which we do not have in the city. What we do have is a technical advisory committee. So we just replaced the first part of that with technical advisory committee. Therefore, we're in line with what our zoning ordinance says. And then if we go on to 2NI, same thing, we're admitting getting rid of administrative and plat committee and replacing it with technical review committee. And then in 3I there, it says approval dates, the calendar of meetings and filing dates shall be prepared by the director and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission of Villa Rica and City Council, and he just struck the Planning and Zoning Commission shall be responsible for setting these dates, when in reality it is the Planning and Zone Administrator. So we struck that out. And then in 3, appealing decisions, there was an exception at the bottom. We removed that. The exception was recourse from the decision of the director regarding administrative review of development plans shall be appealed to the Planning Commission, but that would be to the City Council. So we struck that part out. And then when we get into Section 204, duties of the City Council, number 2A, it stated that the Villa Rica City Council shall approve and deny variances from the development standards such as height, bulk, and area, and we struck that and put in its place all individual standards found within. The council's not limited to just height and bulk and area. And then underneath that, variances shall not be granted from standardized procedural or administrative policies found in the zoning ordinance. Just added a little language there that keeps us legal with the state and in line with the state ordinances on this. And then we get to the final section here. If you go to 9, 10, 11, and 12 and 13, it was just a mistake in the in the original documentation. It was just a repeat of what was already said in 1 through 8. So we're just deleting that out where it's not double copied.
Okay. So I appreciate you going through each of those. Let me just try to summarize. So the majority of this is housekeeping.
Yes, sir,
The
it
majority of
is.
this really was about cleaning up what the balance of authorities were. The Planning
Absolutely.
and Zoning Commission has always been an advisory committee.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So implicit in that was most all these changes that I see, other than the fact that some of this stuff was in here erroneously. So essentially, it's a housekeeping
Yes, sir.
issue. So we're going to take this up in a public hearing tonight, but I still want to give council an opportunity to ask any questions and say, in case they need to have something clarified before we take this up tonight. So is there any questions for Tracy at this stage? Okay, Mr. Carter.
Okay, down in the planning and zoning section under membership, which is part 2, number 8, I think it is.
Say that again.
Number 8 under membership of planning and zoning. This doesn't quite jive with what we had proposed. I would propose a minor change on this.
Well, take me to where we're at.
Okay, let me see if I can find a page number here.
Is it page 8?
6, page 6.
Page 6.
Okay, look up above on page 6 where it's got all the.
Okay, I see that, yeah.
All right. We had proposed that wards 1 and 2 go together because they're following the same stream as the election of wards 1 and 2. They're elected together, and wards 3, 4, and 5 should go together. So I would propose that Ward 2, that should end at 2022, and Ward 5 should be January 2023 to December 2023. So that makes Ward 1 and 2 end on an even year, and Ward 3, 4, and 5 on an odd year.
Okay.
And I need to change something up in the topic here. Instead of the member shall be appointed for every 2 years as shown below, they should be appointed as shown below. And then
Well, now, hold on just a second. You got me confused.
look above that.
All members shall continue to serve. Is that?
Now look above that, the Planning and Zoning Commission, blah, blah, blah. And the third line down, the member shall be appointed for 2-year terms as shown below. That needs to be changed, shall be appointed as shown below, and every 2 years thereafter, so that it would coincide with what I just changed.
Okay.
All right, well, okay.
We can,
It's a
Let
minor
me-
change,
let me-
but it makes things right, because right now it's not right.
All right,
yes, sir.
so let me go back. So just recently, the council approved a change in the nominating and appointment and the terms of these offices. So did the city attorney review this?
Right. So this is, we've not made any changes to this yet. This will be in our next batch of
That's,
So it's not coming
That's
up
not gonna-
tonight?
if you're gonna clean this up right now, you need to go ahead and clean up that part there too, because the ordinance has already been changed. So this needs to be given to David,
Yeah.
and he needs to make this paragraph, section 8, membership, reflect what the new ordinance is. Do you need these other changes now, or can you wait on this till March?
we can wait. We're just working our way through it as time allows.
Perfect. Mr. Carter's right, though, and I don't know exactly if everything he said is exactly what is in that ordinance,
Right.
but he played a big role in that, so I suspect he's right. But have David compare that, and then I don't want to take this up until it's comprehensively completed.
So, all right. So we'll just,
And I work with David and them to make sure, it follows the line of reason we would
Do
come
you
up
have any
with.
reason to do this now? Okay. All right, so let's move this, we're gonna move this out to March, okay?
thanks.
Just clean up those terms.
Yes, sir. I took-
In the membership.
Just for clarity, didn't that have to do with, so that when we were coming, whoever got elected
We'll be able to appoint
was doing
somebody.
those appointments that same time?
And you had to stagger them because they're only 2-year terms, so the 1 and 2 have to go in an even term year, and 3, 4, and 5 have to be on an odd year. They
Okay.
have to end on an odd year. So that staggers them.
They would also end it on the same year that the council person's term ended.
I don't think you can quite do
Except
it that
that-
way because it's every 2
It
years.
won't do that.
No.
It's
It won't-
every
It won't do
two,
that,
but if they get renewed for 2 years, it would end on it, because it's a 4-year term for us. It would still end at the same
This
time.
just sets the
No?
terms no matter what we do, so.
Okay.
I know what you're saying, because originally back in 17 or 16 or 17, we tried to line them up that way. And we could do it when we made them 4-year terms. But Mr. Carter, in this last adjustment, asked that those be 2-year terms, because in his
Right.
thinking, and I'm not disagreeing with him, that he thought maybe I want to make a change in the middle of my term.
Yeah,
So yes, it would be in the middle, but then again, 2 years later, it would end when the council person's.
I don't think the math works that way. We've tried
The
it.
2-year terms, the
Doesn't-
council
because of the
person,
Because of the stagger or whatever?
It
yeah,
just won't work
the
that way.
2-year term, the council person does get a chance to change twice
So,
even.
bottom line, though, is make it comport with the ordinance.
Yep.
And then go ahead and share that with Mr. Carter once you have it drafted up.
Yep, I'll get Ron to get with Mr. Mecklin, and then we'll get with Mr. Carter and get it all
Yeah.
worked out.
All right, thank you.
much.
Let's go to B5, special use permit for scholarship event held by Georgia Food Industry at Mirror Lake Golf Club. This item will also require a public hearing.
Yes.
So, Nairi, you're going to do this one?
I am.
Go ahead and introduce this item for us.
Okay. This is an application public hearing for issuance of a limited pouring license, limited pouring license to serve beer and wine for one day, Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. The event is held at the Mirror Lake Golf Club, and it's provided by or sponsored by Georgia Food Industry Association, acronym GFIA. GFIA is the only industry in the state of Georgia which is dedicated to regulatory fairness in food industry. They operated since 1912. They have a subsidiary basically where it's the GFIA Educational Foundation. So they are asking for permission to operate their annual spring golf tournament at Mirror Lake in efforts to raise money for the education scholarship. I did ask for specifics. So one of the 7 distributors from state of Georgia will deliver the wine, alcohol beverages, wine and beer to Mirror Lake on Monday, March 20th, 21st, in preparation to serve March 22nd. The beverages will be located in coolers at the clubhouse and on the golf course. I'm not a golfer, but the product is being served at the hole by the supplier company representative, whatever that is, and Mirror Lake Golf Club staff will actually serve and be on hand to serve the beverages, as well as staffers from GFIA and board members. So I guess that means at that hole, they're going to serve them beverages.
Okay, so this item is an application to be able to pour beer and wine at a special event at
serve it.
Mirror Lake Golf Course. This requires a public hearing and approval by the city council.
Yes.
We'll take it up tonight. Is there any questions for Nairi, though, at this stage? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. We'll take this up tonight.
Okay.
All right, let's go to B6, adoption of the meeting schedule for Planning and Zoning Commission. Who's doing it?
I'm
Nick.
doing it.
All
Use
right.
the chairs again. All right. The purpose of this item is to request approval from the city council to adopt or approve the attached calendar for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Section 2.03 of the ordinance requires that the commission and the city council approve a meeting schedule for the commission each year upon the reorganization of the council and the commission.
So has the Planning and Zoning already approved this calendar? All right. Council, do you have any questions? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 1? All right, thank you, Nick. I see our city attorney has now joined us. David, you need a few more minutes, or would you rather? You ready to go? Well, that's what I like to hear. All right, let's go back up. We'll go up and take up A1, naming of road by the library. That's a real simple title there. Did you come up with that all by yourself?
I did. I think that's self-explanatory. We are, I don't know how much of a secret it is.
Jim, would you come up here just a minute? All right, David, go ahead and continue.
Again, I want to be careful. I don't know how much of a secret it is here, but we are naming a road after a prominent citizen here, and this is the purpose of that.
All right, give me just a second to pull up your cover sheet. Okay, would you, do you have that cover sheet pulled up?
I do not.
Okay. So I was gonna
Okay.
let you just read it out.
Again, is
you-
is this a secret to anybody at this point?
I don't think it's a secret, but I'm not sure it's widely known. What are you proposing? Just to-
We were proposing that we name the road that runs between the newly built Verida building and the library to be named Steve Adams Drive.
Right. And of course, we're recognizing that Mr. Adams has a long history with the city of Villa Rica and with Carroll County. Having built a large organization outside of the city, he has now relocated his business to the city of Villa Rica and constructed a probably, if not the largest, one of the largest office complexes in the city of Villa Rica. So that's why we're doing this. Is there any questions for David from any council members? Are there any objections to making this consent number 2? No objections. Thank you, David. Let's move on to A2, amendment to special requirements for packaged distilled spirits licenses.
All right, again, I'm still trying to pull it all up here, but the purpose of this particular ordinance is to fill a loophole that we had in our existing packaged distilled spirits license ordinance, which is that we initially thought that we would issue all 4 licenses right at the same time. As it turns out, we are issuing either 2 to 3 of them, and that there will either be 1 or 2 still available. And instead of leaving it so that somebody could interpret it that you're, first come, first serve for that open license, we would hold a application period for any open licenses. And if we have more applicants than we do have licenses available, that we would handle it on the same lottery system that we handled at the first round.
Right. So let me summarize that as well. When we created this ordinance, we anticipated that we would have 4 licenses issued in 4 quadrants of the city. We believed that there would be so many applications that we would not only have filled all 4 of them, but would have additional applications that either wouldn't meet the requirements or somehow would go through some sort of a lottery system. Turned out that didn't happen. We did have 3 that met, but 1 had applications but did not meet. Our ordinance did not provide for how we would fill a vacant license if that were to occur, and subsequent to that, if a license were to be surrendered or taken, we didn't have a way to do that either. So this ordinance makes it possible for us to fill that 4th license under the same conditions and scenarios, such as a lottery system for multiple applications, and for subsequent licenses. Does that sound right, David?
That's absolutely
All right.
correct.
Is there any questions for David at this point? Okay. David, does this require a public hearing?
It does not.
Okay. Is there any objection to making this consent number 3? All right. Thank you. Let's go to A3, settlement of opioid litigation. Mr. Macklin.
Yes, the purpose of this particular resolution is to give the city manager or the mayor the authority to sign off on any settlement agreements that may exist that have come out of the opioid litigation that the city has been a participant in. I received notice from our counsel in that case, Andy Davis out of Rome, who is sort of serving as the class representative for many Georgia cities and counties, that there are settlements that are being reached. The most recent one, I believe, is with CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens. And each time there's a settlement on the class basis, we get a letter saying, we need the city of Villa Rica to sign off on it so that you can get your share of whatever the settlement proceeds are. And rather than coming back to you every single time that one of those letters comes in asking us to participate in a settlement agreement, I am seeking to get your authority to simply allow the city manager to sign off on that. we've gotten in a couple of settlements. They've ranged from $5,000 to, I believe one of them was $16,000. They're not going to be terribly large sums of money once, these large settlements get divided up amongst every city and county in the nation, but we want to be able to get our fair share of whatever settlement that is.
Okay, I think that was pretty comprehensive. Does anybody have any questions? All right, Ms. McPherson.
It was some years ago, I actually voted against joining this class action lawsuit because I really felt uncomfortable with the idea that, we were going to sue at some distance, some sort of pharmaceutical or something else that we really didn't know the case, the details of. Is it legitimate? Is it? But let me ask you this, because at this point, the way I feel about the pharmaceutical industry, I can't even hardly talk about. But what is it that made CVS and Walgreens? Because I know there was the problem with opioids, they're getting written too quickly, that the industry was pushing out so much, and they knew how much was going out, per person in the nation of how many, opioids were being prescribed. And they're the ones that would know the numbers of what they were producing and what was going out. Do you have any idea how CVS and Walmart, in this case, what it was that they were accused of?
I can't give you specific details, no. I can tell you I suspect that the basis for why they chose to settle these types of claims is just an economic decision by them. The prospect of fighting
That makes sense.
a lawsuit that could entail, billions of dollars, and if they were unsuccessful in defending them, would probably have ultimately bankrupted the companies.
Okay, that makes sense, because that happens a lot of time in lawsuits, because I was thinking somebody else is producing it, it's being prescribed, and they're filling the prescription. That's what I'm thinking. They're filling, how could they not fill the prescription? But maybe that's it. They all got wrapped into the lawsuit, and it's less expensive to settle it this way. So we don't know for sure, but
No,
that,
I don't
that would
know.
make sense. Okay, thanks.
All right, anybody else? Anna. Oh, why does she not have a microphone?
Is there, or is an extra one down there?
There is.
Okay. That's okay.
But there's
But I'm
always
sure it is
been,
for now.
there's always been six.
Huh? I'll get it in a minute. But I was just gonna ask, we're not paying attorney's fees for this or anything. We are.
There are attorney's fees that are being charged, but it's being taken out of the overall amount. So
Okay.
it's not a check that we write to anybody.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
All right, thank you. Can we get her a microphone set up? Okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 4? Okay. Let's go to A4, shopping cart ordinance.
All right, the shopping cart ordinance has been proposed in order to deal with the issue that has been raised here in the city, that we've got a bunch of stray shopping carts scattered out throughout the city, many of which are being located out in the woods. People are taking shopping carts from stores, from Walmart, from the grocery stores, putting all their belongings in them and carting them off into the unknown parts of the city. The intent of this ordinance is to try and regulate that problem. And it does two things. It makes it clear that if you take a shopping cart off the premises, that you are committing a crime for which you can be arrested, cited or arrested. It also shifts a burden to the owners of the shopping cart to do several things, the primary one of which is to mark all their shopping carts so that we'll know who they belong to. And the second is to come up with some type of affirmative plan that they will try and regulate their shopping carts from being taken off the premises. Now, we're not creating any absolutely set way of doing that. We're giving them options to come up with their own plan as to how they're going to regulate their shopping carts. We've had suggestions that you can buy shopping carts that, once taken off the premises, the wheels will lock so that you can't move them. That would be an effective regulatory mechanism, but those shopping carts are very, very expensive, and I don't think we want to tell everybody they have to have those. Other alternatives are, doing something to have somebody monitor where the shopping carts are, do a better job of picking them up and watching over them. So anyway, that's the purpose of this shopping cart ordinance. I can't tell you that this will be 100% success rate, but it's something that we can do that other cities have done, and we hope that it will be effective here.
So one of the things that we've noticed with some of the more recent issues going on in the city is that there are a lot of shopping carts ending up serving as makeshift houses and makeshift cars in some cases. But I've noticed, even beyond this ordinance, I'm seeing, for example, Aldi requires you to, I guess, pay a quarter. And I guess people want that quarter bad enough that they take that cart back. But I'm seeing now there's a system that Walmart is employing that your phone, as an electronic device, can charge $1 to the cart itself. And they only get that $1 back when they take the cart back. Anyway, my point is we're giving a great deal of latitude to the businesses to come up with their own way of doing it. But the bottom line is these are their carts. They're responsible for keeping them on their property anyway. This just officially says that the city of Villa Rica expects you to take care of your property and keep your property on your property. So, council, do you have any questions? Ms. McPherson.
Before you do that, I will say that the city did send out notice to all of the merchants, giving them a copy of the ordinance and soliciting their comments to it. And I don't know if we've gotten any
Didn't
of
we
them or
take
not.
in person some
I
of them
think
to
we
the
hand-delivered
larger?
them to the general
That's right.
managers of the stores.
I think so. All right, Ms. McPherson.
Okay, this is more about discussion than a question. Because I went ahead, I read over all of it. I saw the letter that was sent out, or carried there that told them, the options. And I like the fact that we were making them aware of it. But here's my concern. When we do, not that we shouldn't do this, but should we do it yet? An ordinance is a law. It's like legislation. We're making a law. Have we tried to do anything to mitigate this prior to this law? And based on my history, I'm not aware we've done any. And I'm just wondering if we make them aware, this is an issue, it's a problem in the city, we want you to take action with keeping track of your carts or picking them up. Now, my son, well, two of my kids, but one of them worked for Publix for a period of years in Florida. And they contracted a guy that went out and picked up their carts. Because a lot of times they didn't go real far because they had to be wherever that person could walk to. And, Villa Rica's only so big, so that's what Publix did. Some of these stores, Dollar General and all, are smaller. I would like, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, I'd like to tell the businesses, we want you to do your part, whatever you can on your part. Get out and get them, try to prohibit people from leaving with them, whatever, like that. And if that doesn't work, then let's take a more serious approach. I just hate to see us enact a law if we haven't done anything else to address it prior to that, to just see if we can get some cooperation from businesses on it. That's all.
All right, anybody else? Okay. I think that what I hear you saying certainly seems like a reasonable view. I think my only and how we ended up coming up with this and bringing it anyway is that the statement that I made earlier that they already know that they're supposed to keep their own carts on their property. This is just us formally putting them on notice that we have requirements here in the city. I don't see how it hurts us to go ahead and do this. So, let me just see first. Does anybody have any objection to making this consent number 5? All right.
Yes.
All right. So we'll take this over into the regular session.
Let me also mention, too, these carts are expensive.
Sure.
They're expensive.
That's another reason they have to
They
take care of their
should
own
want
carts.
to get those carts back.
That's right.
And somebody will be, they will be a criminal if they go off. Now, I don't have a problem. It is theft. There's no doubt it's theft. And we have an issue with the homeless taking off with the carts and doing things with them and all. So I do want it solved. I'm just wondering if we can do something preemptively and see if it works before we make it law and make somebody a criminal with it. And just the idea that it's hanging over the head of the businesses, knowing that we're headed down this road. In other words, we're saying, listen, we want this solved. If you can't figure it out, this is what we're going to do. And that will cost them, I suppose, some money if they're going to have somebody, because they're either going to have to hire somebody to pick them up, or they're going to have, I would imagine it'd be very expensive to put those devices on that make them lock or electronically track them and all that. That's enough. All right.
All right. We'll take that up tonight. I would just point out that at least at one of the locations, we picked up some, or counted some 40 carts. Is that correct?
One of our employees on a Saturday and another guy went to one of the homeless camps and loaded a trailer with 36.
Okay.
And he said there were still 20 there
Wow.
that they couldn't fit on the trailer.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take it up tonight. I just feel like this is us being proactive. We're trying to solve a number of issues here. It's not that we want to send out the police and start, but this allows people to know that there is a law on the books and we are paying attention to this. All right, we're going to move on to A5, Urban Camping Ordinance. Mr. Mecklin?
This is intended as an ordinance intended to address some issues that we also have going on in the city right now. It is intended to make clear that we don't allow people to camp out on the public areas in the city. If you are going to camp out in the city, you need to at least have the permission of the property owner to do it. As the council is aware, we've got a number of areas in town where people are congregating to spend the night. We've got a bunch of them in the interstate exit loops. I've heard mention in these council meetings that we've got a problem on Industrial Boulevard, that there are people that are camping in the woods there. And this particular ordinance is one that was enacted in another city that I'm involved in, and it's been a successful tool for the police to help deal with the homeless type issues within the city. I mean, we're trying to do it in a understanding, compassionate way, but we need to make clear that you can't just pick up your tent and go camp out on the road right-of-way of I-20. The DOT has told the city that they don't give permission for anybody to be camping on their property, and this will be a tool for us to help enforce their property rights.
Okay. All right, that was pretty comprehensive. Any questions for David on this item? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Just a point, I was told by a constituent yesterday, they're going to try to get me the exact source that they talked to GDOT so that I have the evidence that it's actually accurate. But I was told that we do have some cities that are actually bringing people out here and leaving them in our community, but I need to know that I've got a reliable source to state that as fact. At this point, I've just been told it by someone, and they were going to try to track that information down for me. And also, I think with what we're doing with this, we're still working closely with those nonprofits, because the idea is these people do need help. They need help. So it's not about just discarding people or them camping out, the drugs, the alcohol, the fires in the woods and near power lines and everything else is a safety hazard for everyone, them and the community. So I don't want to dismiss that there needs to be some compassion and help for the people that find themselves in the situation, whether by choice or not, living on the street.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Montahan.
David, so this, though, only relates to public property, correct? So,
I think it also relates to private property where the private property owner has not given permission to be on the property.
okay, because I was looking at the definition of the camp or camping, and it only references public street, public sidewalk, et cetera. I didn't see anything about private property.
I'll go back to look at that. I think the intent was, though, and we may already have laws that, if you're camping on my private property and I
Right.
don't give you permission, I can just call the police and say there's somebody trespassing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So I didn't know if if it needed to say private, or if it's
Now, that
Or-
may be the reason why I didn't add it in
Okay.
there, is just because there's already a remedy for that if somebody's trespassing.
right.
But there's it's not as easy to define somebody trespassing on public property.
Right.
I
Okay.
mean, this would be enforced on people who decide they want to go camp out in the mill next door
Mhm.
and just pitch a tent and sleep there. Well, we hadn't given them permission to do that.
Right, that was the
Okay.
general concern when we looked at this, is that what happens when it bleeds over into public property?
Right.
We
okay.
already know we can handle the private property issues.
Okay. I mean,
because
that was
it's
more
up
my
to the private property owner to make the complaint.
right, and that was more or less my question. I didn't know if it was necessary for us to put private in there, if we felt that the existing ordinances and statutes would cover that. So.
That was the
I think
thinking,
it would.
that it's
Okay.
covered.
Mayor.
Let me, Anna, Ms. McCoy.
I noticed on one of the exceptions, it says persons lying down or napping while attending performances, festivals, concerts, fireworks, and other special events. So that basically means as long as you have a home, you can pass out drunk on a bench and you're not gonna get arrested.
I think in general, yes, I would agree with that. We didn't want to make it so that if you got so bored watching the fireworks on July the 3rd that you fell asleep, we're not going to arrest you for that.
Okay, so, all right, so I read that correctly.
You did.
Okay.
Well, let me, woo,
Not that you ever would get bored watching our fireworks.
somebody's getting us way
They're
out into the
spectacular.
weeds.
It might be really hot.
So-
Festival and you take a little nap.
So we also have laws for that situation. That's called public drunkenness, and we'll deal with that in a different way. But I understand your point. I'm not sure why we got that far
That
in the
person
weeds,
could
but
just
sometimes
argue
David,
I'm
hang on
taking a
second.
nap.
Sometimes David ain't got anything else to do, so we let him keep writing. All right, let me recognize Ms. McPherson again.
Okay, one other point of clarification that I might need help on. What is it that we have in the current ordinance where private property, you could give permission, but as far as I know, you can't live in a camper or an RV. Like, I can go in the backyard and have a camp out with the grandkids, but as far as I know, we cannot set up a camp on our property or have people living in an RV, correct?
You can't have people living permanently in an RV, and I
Permanently.
can't tell you what the exact cutoff is, but we've had situations where people have done that, where they've just pulled in an RV and had a family move in and start living there permanently. We have sent out codes enforcement to deal with that issue because there are septic issues. But as far as you going out in the backyard and camping with your grandchildren,
Well-
the city is not going to do anything to stop you from doing
Right,
that.
I knew that one was fine. It was I wasn't sure where the ordinance was that dealt with permanently camping on even private property.
So I would
That's
say
all.
we will still continue a process of common sense around here. There are terms and times, I should say, that I have seen here in the city when a person's house has been damaged or it has burned and they have set a camper up in their yard. So we're not trying to write a code that would preclude that either. So we're going to use common sense. That's not what this is about. All right, anybody else? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 5? All right, no objection. Let's move on to A6. This is the second reading of the ordinance to redistrict council wards. Mr. Mecklin.
Yes, this came before you last month, so you should be familiar with it. Because this is a home rule amendment to our city charter, it requires a second reading, and you are going to be eligible at the second reading of the ordinance to adopt it tonight. I don't think this can be on and would not suggest that it should be on the consent agenda. I think it needs to be a standalone item so that the minutes will reflect that you did pass it upon the second reading.
Okay, any questions for David? Okay, we'll take this up tonight, David. All right, let's go A7, Quest for Legislation Amending the Villa Rica Public Facilities Authority Act.
Yes, this is a proposed action which we are going to ask the legislature to amend our Public Facilities Authority Act. We need probably a unanimous action by the council to request that the legislative delegation make this change. And it's a little teeny tiny change, but in the permitted activities that the public facility authorities can do. It can do many things to spend money on items here in the city, but it does not specifically state that the Public Facilities Authority can take action with regard to roads in the city, to issue bonds for road purposes. And we want to make that, I don't know if it's a correction, but to make it clear that we can. The most current is the connector road that we're working on right now. I've already given the opinion that I think that we could use the Public Facilities Authority to issue bonds for a road, but this will take away any potential adverse argument to that.
All right, any questions? Okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 6? All right, hearing none. Let's move on down to tab C, Economic Development. This is the 2023 Professional Services Agreement with RCS Productions, Inc. Ms. Chumley.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So this is our 2023 is already here. I can't believe it. We've been working with RCS now since 2020, and this is our 2023 agreement. This is for the West Georgia Jazz Festival, April 29th, Summer Concert number 1, June 3rd, Thomas A. Dorsey Birthplace Festival, specifically Saturday, June 24th, Summer Concert number 2, Saturday, July 22nd, Summer Concert number 3, Saturday, August 5th, and then our Gold Rush Summer Concert, Friday, September the 8th. So as I have attached the contracts for the actual artists for those dates, and then of course the contract for the sound and lighting through RCS. This is a budgeted item, and what I'm requesting is $104,600 for the total package.
So how many years does this make that we've used RCS?
Since 2020.
So this would be the 3rd consecutive year? Okay, and we've had no issues with that?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions from council? Ms. McPherson?
Oh, thank you for sending the requested information. I was looking over it. I think in going with this group that we're contracting with, we accomplished one of our goals, which was to get people that are in this business who not only have access to talent, but they understand the equipment options and lights and all that stuff. They know what they're contracting for, and they know if they're getting it or not. Now, I did go ahead and took the information you sent and looked at kind of what our budget has been with them, what we're paying them in the contract. And this is rounded out, but it looks like 2020, 80, and I know that may have been different because you said it was COVID and we didn't do everything, but that's originally what we had contracted. In 21, 82,000, 22, closer to 97.5, and now we're at like 104,000. And I looked at what we're paying the bands, at least just the artist part of it. And it seems like we're going more toward high end. I don't have a problem necessarily with high end, except we have a limited pot of money. So I still do have some concern. I've expressed this in the past. I still do have some concern about what we're paying some of these bands. And in the end, I also think it would be good for us to know what the total cost of things are that we do. Like when we buy a tractor. You know, when you buy a plane ticket, you know, they go, oh yeah, but you got this fee and you got that fee and you get, oh, and then you see the total price. When you get a hotel room, they do the same thing. They own about 4 or 5 different things you're charged. And then you see the real cost. And there are some costs associated with this now, and I am going to get to a question here. Because I took the time to go ahead and look at the contract itself, highlight a few things. I knew we always did rooms, we feed them, and then they have riders. Can the rider, according to RCS, the rider, this is, I'm sorry, I need to define that too. It's what the band requires, kind of extra stuff they may want. You know, maybe the hotel rooms, the food, and maybe some additional things that they want stocked in the green room, the place they stay before the concert, that sort of thing. Can we get that included in this packet from now on where we know what they're asking for?
So each band is different on their requirements of what they want for the green room. I would say the majority of it is your basic water, sodas. You know, we can't provide them alcohol, and we're very clear about that, so we don't provide them any of that thing. And then basically a meal. That's
Okay,
what
so-
they're rider, but every band's different. So we probably could do that, but would, you know, Todd's actually here from RCS. Todd, how would you guys include that in the
Yeah,
contract?
Todd, if it's very.
Hang on
you
just
may
a
have to-
second. Let's get, is he gonna come up?
He can, if he wants to, he can
Well,
answer that a
come-
little more.
Come on up here. So, what, are you trying to say that you don't actually know the answers to each of those because you don't know the bands this far in advance?
No, we do know the bands, but we don't get their rider requests until the week before the
Until
concert.
right before, okay.
Yes, sir.
I see.
Come on up, Todd. And let's see if you can answer the question. Gotta have a little order here.
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
Well, so we do get a rider in advance for most artists. But what we do typically is we try to negotiate it down because every rider is asking for the world. Now, but we don't do that in real time. We do that 10 days, 12 days, 14 days before the show. It's part of what we call the advance process. We'll contract with the band through an agency, but we don't then speak to the band until 10, 12, 14 days in advance of the show. The agent is a middle broker in the process. So we'll contract the band through the agency, and then 10 days, 12 days, 14 days before the event, we'll connect with the band. Hey, we're excited to have you in Villa Rica, looking at your rider. Let's go through this. What do you really need? You don't need all of this. What do you really need?
Okay.
So we actually do try to even pare it down from what they ask for.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, pretty much, because once they because I used to read some of the writers,
Right.
and I appreciate what you're telling me because I did not know that. I did not know when you did this that you had the negotiating process, because the higher in you get, the more prima donnas you get. You just do. I read the ones where, you know, the fork practically needs to be 2 inches from the plate. I mean, it was demanding. And so some of the bands we're getting now, and I used to read the hotel rooms, you know, usually it's a night, we've got one that wants 2, but we've got 2 bands that want 11 rooms for one and 13 rooms for the other, and one of those is for 2 nights. So what I'm trying to get a picture of is when we contract with you for this 63.5 or whatever, and we're going boom, 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 okay, that's our concert. That's what we're paying for our concerts. No, that's not what we're paying for our concerts. That's what's paying for a good portion of it. And I'm just trying to get a better overall picture of what it's costing us in the end. And if we're doing our best to negotiate with people's tax dollars, I don't care whether it's hotel, motel, or whatever it is, it's tax dollars. But I appreciate that because it helped me learn a couple new things. And that, I think I've expressed my concern as far as cost.
Well, if I could just touch on the hotel, the lodging thing, we try to negotiate that also. In advance of the show, the band doesn't know, 6 months from now, the band doesn't know if Villa Rica is a one-off or if it's going to be a string of shows 3 days in a row. They don't know that 6 months in advance. When we get to the show, if they've booked a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, back to back to back, that 2 nights hotel becomes 1 night. We negotiate that down as well because they're off to the next city. But in advance, if Villa Rica ends up being just a single one-off show for them, then they want to come in the night before just to avoid travel hiccups. Mm-hmm. And then they want, of course, stay the night that they perform.
Okay, and I'll just close and mention, just as a consideration, I've gotten calls over the years of some great artists that we have even out in this area. And just please consider them. I mean, I know we have a runner-up for the, what's the show on TV? American Idol. We have a runner-up right in Paulding County from that. And I hope those people don't get cut out, the talent that we have here in West Georgia. That's all. Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Who? Tom? All right.
Janet, tell them about the date structure and why we changed it.
So we did move one of the concerts from July, I think 8th, because that was right after July 3rd. So that's a lot for staff to handle for 2 weeks straight. So we did change that date to July 22nd to give them a little more time off and to spread it out in between July 3rd fireworks.
Okay.
Did we have this same group scheduled for right after the fireworks? They just moved down.
We flipped them, yeah.
Yeah, doing back-to-back weekends is a killer. And that's what we did last year, and I heard about it for a while.
All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 7? All right. Thank you, Janet.
Thanks.
Let's go to D1. Lena Taylor, amendment to the wellness program agreement for biometric screenings.
Mayor and council, hello, good afternoon. I am here before you to discuss our biometric screening with Tanner Health System. In the past, we used Health 180, but due to a recommendation from our council, Macklin, and the fact that we currently have a relationship with Tanner as they oversee our wellness program, we decided to go with Tanner for the biometric screening. In addition, we will have a health fair on that day. So with your approval, if it's approved, then we will have the biometric screening in addition to the health fair.
All right. Any questions for Lena?
Just one.
All right, Mr. Carter.
How'd you come up with the number 16,175?
Well, it's for a biometric screening, it's about $40 per employee. So it's a huge savings compared to what we had with Health 180. And then due to the health fair, we are having other vendors there. So we are approximating, it's an approximate of 16. I don't see us really reaching that amount. Also, our budget did approve for us to have the biometric screening, I believe, for about 30,000 or so, but we're definitely not going to reach that amount.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 8? Okay. Thank you, Lena. Is that all? Nope, you got one more. All
I
right.
have one more.
Presentation of Great Place to Work survey results. I heard about this. Go ahead.
So, Mayor and Council and all those in the public, I am here to present to you the survey that was done on City of Villa Rica. An agreement with Great Place to Work Institute to perform an anonymous survey of our employees to uncover our strengths and needs of improvement was approved during the November 22nd council meeting. So overall, the design was based on 60 questions, and it was also based on 2 open-ended questions. One of the questions, is there anything unique or unusual about this company that makes it a great place to work? And some of the comments for those questions were, I appreciate the support I get to grow the senior center. This is a great place to work because we have a free range to fix, create, or rebuild areas that need it most. I have been in telecommunication for over 30 years, and I love being there for those who are in need for some kind of help. So those were some of the comments that we did receive for that one question. So the second question was, if you can change one thing about this company to make it a better place to work, what would it be? And the responses were, some of the responses were that the administration would be more open to different ideas. We're actually going to start leadership training where we will learn, that is the executive leadership team, will learn how to better communicate and empower their staff. Another statement was better equipment and additional manpower. The council in December approved updated equipment, and we are working on retention and recruitment. And another statement was better facilities. The break rooms are terrible. Well, we have our grounds manager, grounds and maintenance manager, Tori Langley. He actually saw that need, and he met it head on. And so he is currently prepping and will head up the renovation and overhaul of his department's break room. Also, another last question, last statement was finance more money. In HR, with the budget approval from the council and the mayor, put forth an RFP, which is listed on our site, for a city employee compensation survey in the hopes of addressing this concern. So how did we come up with the decision that the Great Place to Work stated? For companies and organizations to recognize the GPTW, it's better just to shorten it, certified badge, there are two things that needed to be met. First, the majority participation from employees, which is what we had. And if you see on the second one, average of all statements, 65% overall score of the average statement, which is taking everything into account, I would say this is a great place to work. Well, 65% is what we should have met. We actually met 67%, which is actually 2 points above the minimum score. So we discussed this, distributed to full-time and part-time employees. Benchmarks we had to meet were the 2022 best 100 small and medium workplaces. And the reason why I emphasize 100 is that as one of the slides, you may say to yourself, well, wait a minute, how is it that, we're only at a small percentage, but we were actually compared to only 100 of the best small and medium workplaces. There were thousands of other workplaces as well, but GPTW compares you to the 100 best small and 100 medium workplaces, because our workplace is small/medium size. And as I stated, the scale was survey measures consistency of employee experience, almost always untrue to almost always true, which was the 660 core trust index statements. And scores are presented in positive and percent positive, often true or almost always true. So that's why I just earlier spoke to you about the 67% that we did meet. The strengths, these are some of the strengths that the questions that they asked on this survey. Feel good about the ways we contribute to the community. So as you can see, I don't want to just, it's because of time, I just wanted to state that as you can see that with our strengths, we met 87% compared to 94% of 100 small and medium-sized companies. So they compared us to that. And as you can see with our strengths, our percentage is very high there. And then for the next slide, growth opportunities, which are, and to me, I like to use growth opportunities instead of needs of improvement or some of our negatives. Growth opportunities, that's where we are looking at ways that we can ensure that we're working with our staff to hear them, to find out what it is that we need to do to improve. That's why since I've been here, I've been meeting with the staff on one-on-one and to learn specific actions where we can take to strengthen employee engagement and retention within the city that will address some of these statements here. In short, these are our employees. This is the reason why City of Villa Rica, is doing the great work. We thank you to our employees for recognizing the City of Villa Rica as a great place to work, because we did receive the badge of a great place to work. And the kudos, praise, and hand claps truly belong to those employees there. And these are just some of the employees there that we have. So I thank you, and this is just to confirm that City of Villa Rica is a great place to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Lena?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Can we get that attached in here? Because I had no attachment to the wellness program. the little PowerPoint, can it be
Oh,
put in?
this one, sure. Mhm.
Yeah,
I
as
will
an
definitely.
attachment. Okay,
I'll send
thank
that
you.
out to you. Yes.
All right, anybody else? So let me say this, I do want a copy of that. I had not seen that report before, and I appreciate, what was our participation rate?
We have 182 employees, so it was about half, about 60% or so. And so what happens is that so participation is anonymous. That's one. I'm sorry, excuse me, Mayor. It's anonymous. And as with surveys, that's something that employees are not required or mandated to do. So we really appreciated, those who did take the time and those who received the email, because I did have to go back out, and I found that I had to go back out and resend it due to the change in the email structure that we had. So we do appreciate, those who did take the time, because it's talking about 60 questions, and then it was 2 open-ended questions. So yes.
So, because it's not mandated, and because you said roughly maybe 50%, 60% participation,
Yes.
what I hope that our employees hear from this is that we are trying to move in a direction where we are listening to you. While we may have gotten designated as a great place to work, there were real opportunities in those numbers.
Yes.
And I want you to know that at City Hall, Lena, Sarah particularly, but Tom, are working on ways to address those opportunities. We are not going to just say we're a great place to work because we got this designation and just continue on the way we're doing things. We know we have areas to improve in, and we are working on those. I want to look more at that report. I had not seen that report until today. I'd been briefed on the designation. But that report shows us that we've got areas where we need to work, and I want to make sure that the employees know that we see that. That's not lost on us.
Yes.
Okay? All right. Anybody else have any questions for Lena? Okay. Thank you, Lena.
Welcome.
And good work. I appreciate what you're doing to be proactive for this stuff. All right. Who's up next? Tab E. This is Jim. Okay, so the first item up is replacement of Microsoft Surfaces with Apple iPads. I'm going to ask Jim to speak, but before I do that, let me say that we're going to remove E2 from discussion today. I think we were just advised to not look at that right now, so we're not going to. But what we are going to do is look at the replacement of these Microsoft Surfaces with Apple iPads. And I'll start by saying this. Jim, you weren't here when we got these. But
Correct.
when we got these in 2017, so they're pushing 6 years now, they weren't the latest and greatest then.
No, they weren't.
Today, they need some work just about every meeting that we have. So we're getting to a place where they need to be replaced anyway, and I think that most people can see that. But I just wanted to emphasize, you weren't here when we got these.
Correct.
And they're now pushing 6 years old, and most of us don't even keep a phone. Well, David may. I don't know. Keep a phone more than a year or two because he still has a flip phone. But some of us have to be able to still see these screens. So go ahead. Present this item.
The Microsoft Surfaces you currently have are about 8 years old, actually. Like Gil said, that they were already old when we got them. So our suggestion is to get you guys on an iPad where you don't need network access constantly. Because right now you're having to log into the domain, as Danny and Leslie, each of y'all saw. You have to change your password. So according to you guys, y'all are thinking you're changing your password every time you come in here. But it's literally every 3 months. So you're only on the network every, once a month, basically, for our meetings. So it feels like you're having to change your passwords every time. This will eliminate a lot of that. We will still change your passwords, but it'll be a simpler process as far as being able to do it in the cloud on 365. And the clarity of the iPads, I believe you will find much better than what these are offering you. I really don't see how y'all have lasted on these as long as you have.
Yeah, so it's caused me to have to start wearing glasses, I think, to look at this. Anyway, all jokes aside, it is probably time to update these. The cost of these is significantly lower than what we paid for these Surface pads.
Yeah.
You said 8 years, 7 or, so they were probably a year or two old before we got them, at least the technology
I think that's why
was.
y'all got them on sale when y'all did get them, because it was a pretty good deal when y'all got them.
These things have proved to be tremendously useful in the fact that they have just saved us who knows how many thousands and thousands of pages, not to mention the work that goes into putting together all of those binders and going back. So I don't think we need to sell the idea that we need this technology. What we need to make sure here today is that we're talking about why it's important to do this upgrade. I think it's important because, one, these are outdated. Two, the new iPads will provide their own network connectivity. They will be useful wherever you are. If you are, if you're at your house and you don't have good Wi-Fi, or maybe you do, or maybe you're at, a restaurant, or maybe there's some reason you need to pull it out, it has connection, but it also has it right here in this room without relying on this network and changing this network while we're in here, which causes disruptions in the technology that we use to broadcast and that they use when they're streaming this data behind us. So with that, did you want to add anything before I let the council?
The only thing I want to add is I am meeting a week from today with Andrew Whitaker from AT&T FirstNet. So it's not 100% sure which way we'll go, whether it be Verizon or AT&T. We're going to ride around and make sure we have complete coverage, because I know Verizon's coverage has gotten a lot weaker here lately. So we're going to make sure that we get the best coverage, and he will meet or beat this price. So.
Okay, wonderful. All right, any questions? Mr. Carter.
Okay, you quoted $227.94 for connectivity. Which one is that?
That is for the network connection for each.
That's cellular
But which
connectivity,
service
right?
provider?
That's got to be with one of the providers.
That's with Verizon, and
Verizon.
it'll be that or cheaper with AT&T if we'd go that route.
Okay, anybody else? Ms. McCoy.
Which generation iPads are these? Because if these were 2 years old.
No,
oh,
it's
God.
it's the latest generation. It's not the Pro.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Ms. McPherson.
Okay, so I appreciate Apple products. I've had
The
ongoing
simplicity is
issues
good.
if I'm traveling, whatever, right? Because you said Microsoft and Apple, they hate one another. So some of us don't get new devices every year, and I couldn't even have our updated mail on my one mobile device that I use. I don't do email on a phone. So I was using my iPad, and it was too old to even take the updated 360. Is that what do we call?
Office 365.
Yeah, Office 365. There we go. And so that's been helpful. I did get an updated device, so I have that now. But let me just say this, as we mention some issues about these, some of us have been here long enough to know when we got a packet delivered on our porch the Friday before the meeting. Then when we got binders this thick with all the paperwork, and I like hard copy of certain things, every time we had to do an update, Elisa or whoever had to line everything up on a lawn table and days before try to get all the pages out to us for an update. So even this was a massive change, an upgrade from what we were. So I've always appreciated it because of what we had before. So, I don't need glasses. I'm kidding. I got contacts. I'm kidding.
Maybe you eat more carrots than I do.
It happens to all of us, doesn't it?
Anybody else? All right. So I appreciate you looking at this, Jim. Is there any objection to making this consent number 9? Consent number 9. All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank y'all.
All right, let's move on to Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services. Who's going to do this? You? Okay. So this will be presented by Sarah. Are both of these still on here, or just one?
They're both still on there.
All right. So F1 is appointment to Recreation Advisory Commission, and F2 is also an appointment to the Recreation Advisory Commission.
But we need to remove the second one.
That's what I thought. All right. So there's only one that we'll take up here today, and yeah. So we'll strike out F2. Okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, this is an appointment for the Villa Rica Recreation Advisory Committee, actually a reappointment of Dennis Brown. So this term would be from, it says February 8th, but it probably should be January. Well, I don't know. We'll have to ask David. From 2023 to 2026 is what it says on here.
So are these 3-year terms, David?
Excuse me, I think it is a 3-year term, but last meeting we talked about trying to make all of our terms for every committee uniform, and
That's right.
we haven't gotten to that yet, so that, it could change, but I'm fine with it, leaving it.
So we can just take it up like this, and if we need to make adjustments to it, we'll do it
We
after,
will.
because you're reviewing all of these.
Yeah, we're gonna
correct?
try and do it so that everybody on every committee, every commission is all on the same term schedule.
All right, so this is actually a reappointment. So is there any objection to making this consent item number 10 and adding Dennis Brown? Mr. Carter?
Okay, clarifications. We're striking item 2, and that's Kerry Miller.
It would have been, but Mr. Miller didn't.
He withdrew, or what? Said no?
Never
He
received an
never submitted an application.
Okay.
We'll follow up with him again.
All right.
We just don't have it to do, so we're.
Okay,
we're not
no
gonna do that.
objection.
All right, so no objection to making this consent item number 10, and we will place the name Dennis Brown on the consent agenda. Okay, let's move on to Public Works. This is G1, auction of 2 older scoreboards from Vplex. We're going to put these on Gov Deals. Charlie Davis, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We got 2 older scoreboards that are, I think, 33 years old now. I don't know how long they've been out of commission, but they came from the Vplex, and they're in pretty good shape as far as the looks of them. Someone probably buy them for just put in a room somewhere or something. I don't believe they actually still work, but it's be the right way to get rid of them.
Okay, I'm sure there's no, is there any questions? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 11? No. All right, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
All right. Jennifer, H1, fiscal year 22 budget amendments numbers 312 through 315.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, this first agenda item is what I call housekeeping. As you know, we completed the year 9/30, our fiscal year for September 30th. And we are to make sure that there's no departments that have gone over budget. We monitor that, and after all the year-end adjustments, there were 3 departments that went over budget, and I can give you reasons as to why. So this is just cleaning it up. The first one was the city manager professional services was over around $36,000. Again, there's a lot of professional services that the city manager needs, whether it be engineering, consultants, anything of that nature that happens during the year. Legal, attorney fees, the legal department, that department was involved in the SDS renegotiations, local option sales tax renegotiations that only happens once every 10 years, as well as some other items that either council or the city manager had asked for his assistance. So his budget was over by $45,561. The next item, or the next department, is the intergovernmental for the SDS for Douglas County Fire Services. As you know, as part of our service delivery agreement with Douglas County, we receive insurance premium tax every year about middle of October, and then we are in turn supposed to cut them a check for 40.05% of that insurance premium tax. So there is revenue that offsets this expenditure. We actually received about 25% more than we did last year. We actually received about $1.4 million, a little over $1.4 million, and 40.05% of that is supposed to go to Douglas County for fire services. So because we received more than we budgeted, we also had to give more than budgeted. So therefore, that is why I'm using the insurance premium tax revenue to help offset all of these departments.
Okay, any questions for Jennifer? All right, hearing none, is there any objection to making these budget amendments consent number 12? All right, hearing none. Jennifer, let's go to H2, fiscal year 23 budget amendments numbers 13 through 148.
Yes. I know this seems like a lot of budget amendments, but again, it is part of our fund finance housekeeping that we do after we close the year. The first section is what we call the FY22 rollover for open purchase orders. What that is all purchase orders that are legitimate at the end of the year that maybe the service has not been received or the item has not been received by the end of the year. We want to roll those purchase orders over so that when the item is received or the service is received, they have budget funds, the departments have their budget funds available to pay for those. A lot of these purchase orders are have been liquidated, meaning that we have issued the check, but we just wait until we finalize year end to bring before y'all a complete budget amendment instead of doing it piecemeal. So that is the first section. The second, I'm sorry?
So these are purchases we already made, but they're not getting here until this year.
They're commitments or contracts, yeah. They're items that we've already committed to through a purchase order, but we just did not receive the item or the service until this fiscal year.
All right, go ahead.
All right, the next is what we call the FY22 capital project budget rollovers. As you know, capital project funds are budgeted different than our regular general fund or regular operating budgets. We budget for those capital projects in what we call a project length budget because capital projects usually take longer than a year to complete, mainly your water and sewer projects. But we did have projects, whether they be Carroll Splost in 2015, Douglas Splost 2016, or our 2021 Carroll Splost, as well as some water and sewer projects. And I tried to put in the account name a good description so you would see what those projects are. And again, it is where we budgeted for it in 2022. Yes, there were some expenses to those capital projects, but they were not complete. So we take that remaining balance and we roll it over to 2023.
Okay. Any questions for Jennifer on these budget amendments? Okay. If none,
Okay.
is there any objection to making this consent number 13?
Mayor,
All right,
I do have
hearing
one
none.
question.
Oh, you have a question?
Well,
Ms. McPherson.
and I think I saw it the other day when I was going through this and it hit me, but I failed to write myself a note. In economic development over at Pine Mountain Gold Museum, there was like an improvement expense, petting zoo barn, and the last I knew, we weren't doing anything with the animals over there. So is that happening or not happening?
Those are all conceptual designs that we did a year ago or so when we were looking at improvements that we can make. So that's all we did was just design.
And there was an open purchase order, I believe, for that. And if that PO ends up getting closed, then that money just goes into the pot of Pine Mountain capital projects and whatever the city manager deems appropriate with y'all's approval.
Well, now, this doesn't suggest that we're going to put animals, or even anybody's even thinking about putting any more animals back over there.
That's sort of how we decided, was we looked to see what it would take to build, and we got cost estimates, and then we stopped.
Okay, good. That's where we need to leave it. All right, do you have any objections
People really miss those animals.
to making this consent number 13? All right, so let's go on. H3, write-off
Okay.
customer receivables.
All right, this is the annual write-off of water and sewer and garbage customer receivables. You can see the amount that we're requesting is $33,876.14. Which is 0.35% of our revenue that was generated in both of those funds, which is actually better than we did in the prior year, both in dollar amount and percentage. Last year was $47,715 at 0.51% of revenue. Again, I reached out to the other entities around us just to kind of get a bearing of where we stand and how we write off, and you can see we are within range. Better than some, or as far as average is 0.44, but actually this year it was 0.35% of revenue.
Let me, just real quick, there were some, when we looked at this, there were some commercial accounts. Are they still in here? Okay, good. I don't want those in there. Okay.
Right.
All right. Any questions for Jennifer? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, on this one, we look at this every year because basically the rest of the taxpayers are absorbing, for whoever didn't pay or left town. And I don't know, I keep looking at the write-off history, and one of the big improvements, or two things we did to attack this, and we talked about this last year, was that we required more for a deposit. And I wanted to be careful on what we did for that, because if you've ever been anybody or had one in your family move into a house or apartment with all the expenses that you have to put down in deposits, it's pricey, it's expensive, and I don't want to overburden people, especially when it's so hard to, the cost of rent and housing and everything is so high right now. But the other thing we did was we made it quarterly, right? Where, no, we broke up the month. We broke up the month
Cycle
quarterly cycles into 4 cycles so that people weren't getting so far behind before we caught it, send out the warning, cut it off, maybe there's a leak. Any of that would get caught sooner. So I'm going to ask the same question I did last year, because when I look at this, it doesn't look like a win to me. Yeah, it's better than last year, and I looked at where we are with the other cities, at least a few, and that's helpful that you provide that information. This does not look like we've made, wow, that really worked to have that bigger deposit and to do the cycle. So when I'm reading the city manager reports, I'm still seeing a number of times, and this came up last year, where we have like no cutoffs on that, that part of the month or whatever. Are we doing that? Is there the staff available? Are we skipping those weeks and so it's not getting caught, which is what we designed it to do, to get caught before people get further behind? Is that clear, what I'm asking?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
it is being done, but yeah, there are probably weeks that, due to vacation or sickness, that they have to prioritize and read the meters and do repairs or do whatever. So, but it is getting done, and, I think they're doing a really good job in getting out there, but there are going to be times that you're probably going to see that there were no cutoffs in that week.
Okay, then last question is, do you feel like we're doing everything we can to keep this as low as possible at this point? Is there?
I was going to say yes, but he's saying no, so.
I still have peripheral vision.
Yeah,
I know.
the question you should ask is, does it make sense to spend more money? And the answer is no.
Was actually in my head, because if
Right.
it meant we had to hire someone else,
Yeah, I mean,
that might cost us more.
the net of that isn't going to get better if we spend money trying to do something different.
That wouldn't
Like
even-
we could do in-house collections, let's say. Whereas now, when we send something to collection and they don't collect it, what's it cost us? Right? But if we do it in-house and we don't collect it, that's just labor out the door, right? So I don't know of anything that we can do that would be a net positive, because what we're doing fits us. The cycles fit us. The way we do cutoffs fits us. I mean, and when I say us, I mean it fits the community. We're not the police about this. I mean, we're not taking such a hard position on how we handle people. So when people come in and they have issues, Ashley and that group, I mean, they're trying to work with people.
Yeah.
We could be a lot harder, but it'd be, to me, negative, right? So it's not just the money side of it. We could take a more onerous approach, just like charging more for a deposit. Right,
Yeah,
we could do that.
Yeah.
I don't get the feeling that fits y'all, right? I mean, am I missing that? I know
Well,
council member talks about it the most, but I don't see anybody else coming in and telling me you want to raise the deposits.
Right.
You apparently wanted to finance committee meeting today.
No, I wasn't. Did you say that you wanted to raise the deposit? All right, excluding Mr. Carter, I don't think y'all want to raise the deposit.
Well, we didn't necessarily say we wanted to raise a deposit, but we were kind of thinking of ways of where we can change the system in some way to kind of keep up with it, whether it's a usage view or mid-term deposit uppage based on usage or something like that.
Yeah, let me tell you one that David and I are going to be working on with the staff. A couple of months ago, not even that long ago, a month ago, I asked Jennifer to run a report of all the residential accounts that had excessive usage. And to my great surprise, there were like 100 accounts that in November and December both had way more than twice a normal water volume. And so I sent them back to Ashley and I said, go pull these up and see what your notes are saying. And almost all of them are known leaks that the resident is refusing to fix. Because the argument is they don't have the money to pay the plumber, but they're paying us $100 or more extra a month to fund the leak, right? And so David and I are trying to work on something now, because that's just dumb and dumb and dumb, right? From conservation standpoint, it's dumb. For this, it's dumb because when they leave, they're going to owe us a bigger bill, right? For them, it's really dumb. One of them goes back to 19. They've been paying an extra 100 and something since 19 because they can't pay to repair the leak. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
Well,
there's a lot to this.
We look stellar compared to Atlanta, who let so many of theirs go. They've been all over the news. Those people will never be able to pay their bills. I did report one where there was a leak. It was commercial, and it's exactly what you were talking about. It's still going on. I'm out for my walks. I go, oh, the water's still running down here, but it's private. They have to fix it. It's not ours to fix, and they're paying for water to go into the storm drain.
We had one right across from City Hall that went on for months before they would finally fix theirs, commercial.
See how much we learned?
I learned that. I've been here 5 years before we ran that report. I was upset when I got that report because I thought for sure when I first got it that something was wrong. And then when I got the report back from Ashley, and there were notes on almost every pairing of accounts where they had gone out, and we've talked to the customer. And there's notes in the file, the date that we talked to them, and that they've refused to repair it or been unable. I mean, however you want to say that, it's not getting fixed.
So the question was, do you feel like we're doing everything we can to minimize these write-offs? And the answer to that really is yes.
It is yes.
Even though Tom says no. But he says no because he talks about there are things that we could do that we're just not going to do. It's beyond the pale of what we're going to do. It's cost prohibitive. It makes no sense. We spend more trying to do those things. The cycle billing, the way we do the shut-offs, the way we do the notices is keeping this mitigated as much as possible. And when you compare it to the other cities around us, which we don't do that very often, but there's still a customer base. It's still the way we have to look at it. We're still a business. There's a certain amount of loss that we're all going to have. That issue that Tom is talking about, we actually have some ideas for how we're going to deal with that as well. So I think the answer to that question is yes. We are doing everything that we can practically do to keep this number as low as possible. There are some numbers here that we did not include. We're not going to ask to write those off because we're going to take some additional steps to try to recover some of that revenue. So I think the answer is yes.
It is yes.
All right. Is there any other questions? Mr. Carter.
Do we keep a list of available plumbers, reliable plumbers, low-cost plumbers that we can suggest to these people they can go to? I mean, maybe they need some help finding a reliable, low-cost plumber that, wouldn't rip them off.
The issue that people have, though, Mr. Carter, is not the plumber. The issue is locating the leak. Knowing where the leak is inexpensive to fix it.
You're saying we don't know where these leaks are.
That's usually the problem with a leak.
We
you don't know where it is.
But we don't recommend because of the issue we get into with unhappiness with the service.
All right.
All right, so is there any objection to making this consent number 14? All right, let's go to H4, resolution to execute loan number GF 2022008 with the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority.
Okay. We were approved through GFA for $3 million for the North Bypass and Highway 78 and Connors Road roundabout utility relocation. Again, it's for $3 million with a loan origination fee of $37,500. The interest rate is 2.42, which is a very good rate, lower rate than what the normal market would be, and the terms is 20 years. There's a lot of documents that have to be signed and notarized, so this is asking for the resolution to be passed to give you authorization to sign those documents.
So let me ask you a question. I got a letter from the governor today about this. When did we get approved for this?
The letter was January 23rd.
Okay. So because of our Water First designation, we should get a 1% rate or a 0.75% rate reduction. Does this include that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this number would have been 3.42 or something like that.
Right.
Wow. Okay. I was hoping for a little bit lower number, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
our
be clear
first
on
one,
that.
the 2.5 for the North Avenue extension was 0.13%, but that's when the rates were extremely low to begin with.
I understand. Okay. Council, any questions? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, when I read over this, I can't locate it right this second with the roundabouts. I could have sworn that somewhere I saw the term used for the Connors Road one, calling it a small or mini roundabout. Anybody else see that? Okay, so I know the roundabout that is supposed to come at some time at, say, Industrial and 78 is supposed to be maybe one of the largest in the state. That's the term I've used in the past. But Connors Road and 78 is where East-West Express trucks come out. Do you know where that word is that I saw that? It used the word, mini roundabout or something like that, which sent up red flags for me.
I can't imagine that would be a mini roundabout,
Maybe it's a
but I don't
mistake.
recall that language.
We'll look at it, because I haven't noticed it.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, Ms. McCoy.
I was just gonna say, I think it might be in, something else like the Facilities Authority or something like that. I think that's where I read it. But I don't know off the top of my head, so I just wanna say that.
Okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 15? All right, let's move on to H5, approve a resolution to execute modification number 2 to the promissory note and loan agreement with Georgia Environmental Finance Authority for $2,500,000 for the North Avenue Waterline Extension Project.
Okay, this is just a modification number 2 for the schedule, the scope of work, the budget. There's no change to either of those. It's the schedule for the notice to proceed. It's changing from February 2022 to May of 2023, and the completion of construction is from December. It's changing from December 2022 to April 2024.
April 2024.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, any questions on this one?
Just want to see it
All right.
happen.
Is there any objection to making this consent number 16? All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Deputy City Manager, CFO Sarah Andrews. I-1, update utility rate fee schedule to include tap fees for townhomes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, yes.
So currently on our rate sheet, the tap fees are listed by meter size, except at the bottom there is a note for apartments that are on, it doesn't say this, but apartments that are on a master meter, you would pay a $5,000 tap fee plus $1,200 for each unit over 3. That's actually hidden.
Yeah, cut off.
What we're recommending with the growth that's coming is to include wording about townhomes. Townhomes on master meter would be the same. Because it would be set up the same if they're on a master meter. Master meter, excuse me, $5,000 plus $1,200 per unit over 3 units is what that should say.
So when we talked about this, I remember thinking, why wouldn't we already have this in place? Is this necessary, David? Do we not already, multifamily being on a master meter only makes sense that it would be that it would have this sort of a fee schedule.
We don't have a townhome development on a master meter.
That would be unusual too. for
Yeah,
a
that's what
townhome.
Chapman is proposing,
Yeah.
and that's what prompted this.
Okay.
Is I just happened to look at it one day and I thought, when Chapman comes along, there's nowhere in here that defines his situation. So that's why we want to
Because
add
it's
it.
unusual to have
It'll
townhomes
be
on a
unique,
master
yeah.
meter. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Council, do you have any questions?
No, but I will
All
say
right, Mr. Carter.
that you had the same question I was going to ask. Is I can't believe this isn't being done. We have a group.
Well,
that's
we
not-
haven't run into it, so that's the reason.
We don't have townhomes in Villa Rica.
no
We have a
townhomes.
few, but none on
you
a
know,
master meter.
Oh, I thought we had townhomes. We don't have any yet.
Well, I mean,
We've got a few.
you got a handful, but you don't have a townhome development that's internally metered and billed by the developer on one water meter.
We have approved several townhome developments, though, right?
We've got like 6 that are coming.
But each of those,
But most
Mr. Carter,
of them
have
are-
a meter on every door.
They're fee simple, so they're gonna be like a house. Each one will have a meter, we'll bill it, we'll collect it.
What's the purpose of it being on
A master
a
meter.
master if they're not rental? Like apartments are always rental,
That townhome development's rental,
the whole thing.
right?
All right. This just makes good sense.
So this is something we overlooked, in other words.
Is there
Hadn't
any
had the
objection
option.
to making this consent number 17? All right. I-2, resolution of support for the city's Livable Centers Initiative study grant, application for the Highway 61 corridor. Is Chris? Oh, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. It has come to that time of year again when the Livable Centers Initiative studies are put out for a call for project. And we've been talking internally for a number of months about a Highway 61 corridor study, especially given that when the North Bypass is completed in a couple of years, that's going to really kind of change the flow of transportation as well as future uses associated with the 61 corridor. So we reached out to our contacts with the Atlanta Regional Commission with respect to our objective in addressing land use, transportation, sense of place, beautification, economic development, and they recommended this as a new LCI study as opposed to a supplement to our existing downtown LCI. We talked to them about what we expected from the outcome with respect to the establishment of a community improvement district, with respect to placemaking and gateways, the realignments of roads, public safety, the intersection functionality with respect to the interstate off and on ramps and the reverse diamond intersection. And based on what the extent of the project from the southern boundary to basically Dallas Highway on 61, which is a 7-mile corridor, they gave us a kind of a ballpark of what they've seen done historically in the past, based on the quality and the detail that we were asking for, and based on that, recommended a project cost of around $400,000, which would be a city match of $80,000. So it's a $320,000 grant with an $80,000 match.
All right, very good. Appreciate all the work that's going into all these various grants and applications. It's probably something that we missed over a number of years, just trying to take advantage of some of this. Council, do you have any questions for Chris? All right, there's no questions. So is there any objection to making this consent number 18? All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, City Manager, J1, emergency drainage repairs to Mirror Lake Parkway at the Mirror Lake Dam. Go ahead.
We have gone through a number of inspection cycles on the dam at Mirror Lake. We've been put on notice for several years now that we need to make repairs there. David has looked at it and has agreed that it's the city's responsibility. We have still been unable to get all of the easement approvals that we need to actually do the work, but we have a contractor now who has taken a look at it and believes that they can make the fix. This recommendation is with us, the city, making the material purchase. So this is just the labor part of it. The you can see the total estimate there for the material. So we're going to try to button up these easements, and then as soon as the weather breaks, get out there and actually get this dam back into compliance. It's got a drainage seepage issue. Bobby's worked on this for years now, and so we think we're finally at the point where we can get this done before we get penalized.
But you're estimating the materials to be in the $40,000 range?
At least.
Yeah, well, are you coming back?
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, all we're looking at is just the labor piece, but once you have a materials cost, you're going to come back.
We're trying to get on their schedule, and then we're waiting on the weather.
All right, any questions, council? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 19? All right. Let's go to J2, approval of addendum number 24 with Carter and Sloop to conduct the water and sewer rate study. Tom?
So back to what you just modified, where we were putting the townhomes on there. Sarah and I have spent some time talking about the way that our structure has been created and evolved. And the last time that we had somebody look at what we're doing was in 17, right when I got here. And the focus at that time was more on the residential base and volumetric part of the rate structure, and not so much on how we did commercial and industrial and apartments and townhomes and all that stuff, and how we did tap fees, and that wasn't really the focus. And so I'd like for us to get that refreshed and expand it to all those things that we didn't really focus on. Carter and Sloop has been doing our water design pretty much since I got here, maybe since 18. And I'd like for them to take a shot at that to see if we can modernize some of the structure itself with a view toward what we know is coming, which is a new contract with Carroll County Water in 2 years that we, have been trying to get ready for.
Okay, is there any questions for Tom on this item? All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, since it wasn't budgeted and it's coming out of the general fund, right? It's not coming out of water and sewer, is that right?
It is water and sewer.
It's water
Wait,
and sewer.
It is. Funding source, there it is, water and sewer. We've had a number of things, because I was thinking if it's not budgeted, why don't we just wait till the budget? But then when I think about water and sewer, we've actually had to do a lot of things that weren't budgeted just because we're fixing so much stuff.
And
I
if
mean,
we-
that's the way I see it from reading the documents and what we've talked about.
If we get this done in time, then the results become what we base the next budget on.
I see. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, because it initially it felt a little premature to me, because I knew that we'd just done one of these in 17 or 18. We implemented them in 18 and 19.
That's 6 years, though.
No. I understand. But I think we made really good decisions then because we were proactive about how we got ahead of it, which is why I'd support this now, because we need to better understand how this is going to impact as we begin to look for more raw water sources. And it looks like this will take into account some of the very high cost items that we'll need to have in place to make that work. Anybody else have any questions? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 20? All right, let's do J3, approval of proposal from Keck and Wood for additional services related to the construction of the North Bypass. Tom?
we, the city, somewhere back in the day, hired Keck and Wood to design the north bypass? I want to say in 98, but I may be wrong on that. A long time ago, though. They finished in March. The final version was done in March of 22. It was let, I guess it went to bid in April of 22. And so basically they're done. But as with most construction projects, there are questions coming from the contractors and the utility guys. And I would like to have the ability to engage them as I need them. So the contractor comes to me and asks me a question, and then I go to Keck and Wood and tell them they can answer it. Not in a dissimilar way from how David sometimes has to respond to something where somebody asks me or the mayor or Sarah something and we don't know the answer, and we ask David to tell us the answer, and then it gets conveyed back, sort of like that. So this is just a monthly, hourly rate agreement so that I can call on them when I need them.
All right. Any questions, Tom, on this one? That's just part of regular
What's,
process. Mr.
what
Carter.
kind of rate we talking about here?
I was thinking there's an hourly schedule. I'm hoping there should have been an hourly
How much
schedule.
money annual we talking about?
I'm hoping zero, but I mean, it's only gonna get used if the construction guys that are out there or the utility contractors have a question about the design. So we don't know that we're going to use this at all, but I mean, it's a 3-year project. So what's the chances they're going to have a question? I think it's pretty good. And I've already had to use them once, and I didn't have this in place. It's what made me want to bring it.
You've used them once, what do they charge us an hour then?
Well, they charged me that rate.
There's a schedule behind you.
There's an hourly schedule. So
Which engineer?
Oh, okay. I don't see
yeah,
it.
I just want y'all to approve the rate schedule so that I can use them as I need them.
All right. Ms. McPherson.
They predated me by, I don't know how long ago. I think when I even moved here, because I was sitting in council meetings and their name was always coming up because I had to do with the bypass and the Indiana bats and what they had to look for. Didn't we also have something with them where we had something built into the engineering design to allow for the Gold Nugget Trail, which
Yes.
wasn't named, I don't believe, at that time,
Yes.
to be able to get under 61 Dallas?
Under the bypass.
Yes, yeah, and that got done, and,
That's in the
but they're the
design.
people that were doing all that, so I
Yes.
can see the need. Okay, all right, thanks.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 21? All right. Let's go J4, approval of proposal from McIntosh Paving for Punkintown Road repair. And I want you to give just an update on Punkintown Road. I had an email from a constituent wanting an update, and we talked about this earlier, so I want you to do both. in
All right,
this.
so 2 things are going on. One is we're continuing to work on the design of completely rebuilding the road. At the same time, the road surface is falling apart, and those 2 things chronologically are not going to G-haul. So the road is falling apart faster than we're getting the design done, but I didn't want to spend money repairing the surface knowing I was going to come back and dig it up. And when Bobby started shopping this, it was like $400,000 just to get somebody to come out here and resurface. But contractor demand is going down. Asphalt prices are not skyrocketing like they were. We got a $90,000 quote to go out there and do not the road. This is not digging up the road and making all the shoulder repairs and curb and gutter and sidewalk and all that. This is just milling and top coating in only one section. So this is just the section that's potholing really bad. So the area down near the cemetery and Stone Road, Old Stone Road, and the downhill piece there going by Barbara Brown's house, that's not the part that's busted up. It's farther north, going back up toward Shoreline. That's what we're going to work on. So that's the recommendation. These are the guys that do our patching. So when Jason is out cutting the road to do a water line repair and we put a plate on it, this is the group that comes in, moves the plate, digs out the gravel, re-asphalts the hole, right? So they're in town regularly, and we got a good relationship and good experience with them.
And to be clear, this is not one moment too soon for that section. That section is in really, really bad.
No, this is months behind.
Yeah.
We just couldn't find anybody that would give us a price that I could bring to y'all with a good conscience.
Right, with throwing good money after bad, which is we do it and then we go back and tear it up and then do it again. But we've gotten to a place now where we can't avoid it, and we're getting to the financially we can make that work. All right, any questions from council? Ms. McPherson.
It's okay if you say it runs by my house. I hear it. All the cold patch gravel is all over the place. I've gotten numerous complaints, right? But so it's bad enough that it's falling apart, you're hitting it, and then it keeps getting worse because everybody's driving up, but then it gets hot, then it gets cold, then it rains. And so I couldn't seem to get an answer from staff. I just need somebody to tell me what is the plan, and finally I heard it on the radio. Thank you, Gradic Communications, what our plan was, and then I read this. But this hurts. I mean, it's so hard. It's like having a roof repair when you know you're going to replace the roof anyway, but we can't wait. This has to be done now.
Yep.
And the only positive, and this isn't a big positive, it has actually slowed traffic because it's so bad that people are just trying to figure out how to maneuver it. That is the only positive out of it. But it is dangerous because people are dodging. They're dodging the holes now, and there's no place to go. You can't go off the side or you go into the other lane. So it's gotten really dangerous. Obviously, I drive it all the time, but I'm getting calls and texts and emails on a regular basis. So I'm glad we're getting to it, and now we can tell people. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah.
All right, any objection to making this consent?
Yeah,
order
you missed
22?
it.
Oh, I thought you said
You
no.
gotta-
Mr. Carter.
I'm
It made me
curious
laugh.
as to why these two particular places, two locations, not the whole road, why are they coming apart?
It's pretty much from the tennis courts or thereabouts all the way down the hill.
But you're only doing the lower section
That's what we're going to do, is just the parts that's the most busted.
on each side of Old Stone, the section of road.
Yeah, it won't be as far down as Old Stone. I
Well, they
don't
got a
think.
section showing here north of Old Stone.
Yeah, we're not going that far down, I don't think.
Okay.
Well,
I think it's 1,400 feet, maybe.
Then you're only doing one section. They're showing two.
Well, when I say one section, I mean the area that's busted, but the part that I'm the most concerned about is there at the council members.
McPherson's place.
That place is bad.
That might be the worst, but it starts right about Shoreline. Oh, I'm sorry. So are they doing that other section?
So the shoreline part we're going to do during the traffic light, which is coming up.
So you're saying this is not what we're going to do? We're not going to do two sections. We're just doing the one.
I don't believe so. I think that the bid is for the worst, which is right there where Parkway Circle comes in on the north side.
So it's $90,000 just to do that small part.
We'll verify that with Bobby when he gets back in the saddle. He's still indisposed.
But doing well.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
doing well last time I talked to him.
Anybody else? All right. No objection to making that consent number 22. Okay, let's go to J5, professional services agreement with Bobby Elliott.
Speaking of indisposed.
That's right.
So Bobby's retired. We have talked about him making himself available to help us in the interim while we look for another PE to do site plan review, to do that for us on a contractor basis. The proposal was prepared by David. The rate is similar to what we're doing with Brennan and Mark Teal and Paul and a lot of the other sort of smaller individual outfits that we deal with. We have posted that position. I don't, the mayor and I talked about this morning. I don't know that we're going to get good responses, any responses. I'm hoping the economy maybe is taking a little bit of a dip, and maybe there's an engineer out there that would like to get out of the hourly business and, work somewhere that's a little bit more secure. So we're going to look, but in the interim, I got to have somebody doing plan review. So this is the recommendation.
All right, any questions? Mr.
Yeah,
Carter?
how long ago did we post this position?
Just this morning.
Yeah, how long ago did we know that Bobby was going to retire?
I knew that he was talking about it probably last summer.
Or
Yeah,
really
we
for
didn't
3
go.
years?
We didn't go out looking for a replacement. I don't understand that.
The market
honestly,
wasn't conducive for that.
Until about,
Is it conducive now? Or
Not
no?
really.
that's the question. Until a couple of weeks ago, I had not had anybody tell me that they were seeing a change in the engineering business, but I have begun to hear from the engineers that we interact with that there is a dip, and that some of the engineering firms are starting to let people go, that material costs are dropping, and one even told me that he's seeing contractor bids coming in as much as 20% lower than they have been. So we're starting to see a little bit of a dip, and that's why Sarah and Lena and I started working on this. Is there's at least a glimmer of hope that we might find a PE now, but 3 months ago, I would have told you it was a waste of time. And it may be a waste of time today, too, to find somebody.
But
we're going to try.
Because we want
We're going to, I just think it's responsible to try. I just, if we don't get anything, we don't get anything.
And I think also to your question, Mr. Carter, we also knew, because Bobby had talked about really wanting to be able to retire 18 months or 2 years ago. And we also knew that he wouldn't be unavailable to us when that time came. So there was no real urgency to post it. But the market just didn't allow for that. We knew we would be in a wage war that we weren't going to be able to compete with at that time, and we didn't have to. So we're going to do it now. We're going to post it now, and we'll see what we end up with.
But if you don't put it out there for people to find, they aren't going to find it. If they don't know it's
Well, we're gonna
available.
Put it out there.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a
Are
little
you
late.
just dying to be back on TV? All right, real quick.
So, actually, we weren't actually sure if he was going to retire. So, speaking with our council, you don't want to post a job for someone who's currently in the job until you actually know that they actually give you the go-ahead that they're actually leaving.
All right.
So, that's another reason. That was my recommendation to the city manager.
All right.
And to deputy city manager.
All right, thank you, Lena. All right, anybody else? Is that good? Okay. All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 23? All right, let's go to J6, approval of proposal to update the concept plan for Connors Road Park, finally.
All right, we, the city, not me, we, the city, had Falcon do a concept plan. I'm going to say in 16. This was a David and Vicky project before I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And we put, I want to say $720,000 of Douglas SPLOST money in that project in the last year of the 6-year SPLOST, which just ended. So we've got that money now. And so I want to update that because several of you were not on the council at the time. You didn't have any input into this. I didn't. Sarah didn't. It's a very difficult piece of property. We've talked about very steep, a lot of rock. I gave you the 2 deliverables that came out of that update, which was a trail plan and then a site plan on top of the top of the property. very difficult to access top of the property. So we're going to look at all that. We're going to talk about whether we can make the road a little bit more workable, how much switchback we need to put into it. But I mean, it's going to be a unique property, I think, out here, because nobody's going to have this topo in a passive park.
So let me talk about your point about the input. So a lot of folks had input in it, though. The public did these, what they called charrettes, and,
Yep.
and a lot of folks was involved. They had these guys who come out, this group that designs trails for bikes and for walking and things like that. There was a real effort and involvement by the public here. Why I'm supporting this is because I recognize that something that did not get addressed back then was exactly what you're talking about with the switchback and how you access that property. The topography is really, really difficult. And there's really no point on Connors Road where you can just simply put in a road to access the top of this this property. You're going to have to come in probably from an angle and then switch back to access it. So we need these designers to come in and tell us really what we can do there and how to get it done so that we can get this park moving. It is going to be unique. It's probably going to be, so far I know we have another place for one, but this is going to be the first passive park that we've had here in the city of Villa Rica. To my knowledge, it'll certainly be the largest park all throughout the entire city. So does anybody have any questions on this item? Ms. McPherson.
Actually, something that needs to be added is for anybody who wasn't here, whether it's a citizen or one of us up here, is that the whole reason we have this property is because it was given to us. But it has to be kept in a passive park type thing in perpetuity. Did I say that correctly?
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity. There we go. And so that's how we came across it, and it was given to us in a land trust. The other thing is there were a lot of people involved. Listen, I hike when we're at the state parks. I don't do the mountain biking, that's right. But I would highly recommend, because I'm not an expert at this, y'all aren't experts at this, Falcon Design is going to help us as the engineering. I don't know how much they've done of this. If there's any way you can engage those nonprofit groups, I can't think of their name right off the bat, but they can't be hard to track down because they're all over the state in Georgia. They've influenced the building of other bike paths, that sort of thing, maybe even Clinton. Maybe at the Clinton Preserve, they might have even been involved in that one. And if you've got people who are passionate about this, who have background, who have skills, who basically offer their opinion for free, I would just recommend that we reach out to them so that we're not blindsided because we have no expertise in this. And they can kind of maybe give some feedback as to what Falcon Design is proposing. And maybe there's someone else out there too with just a path. They're mainly in the biking area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember the name of them either, but we'll find that out. Okay, so is there any other questions? All right, any objection to making this consent number 24? All right, let's go to J7, approval of proposal to create a master plan for the Highway 61 corridor. Tom?
Okay, so we earlier voted on a LCI app for money for a study on 61. In preparation for that, I would like for us to get Falcon to come in here and take all of the ideas that we have generated over the last several years, me, the mayor, Sarah, Chris, Ron, Tracy, everybody that's been involved in talking about 61, new roads, annexation, second industrial park, our conversations with the school system and with the county, take all those ideas and build them into our GIS system in layers. So you'd have a road layer and an annexation layer and a land acquisition layer and an industrial park layer so that we can turn them on and off and look at the 61 corridor. We would like to talk about a CID, which we haven't gotten into much here, but that's a community improvement district, and it's used to generate revenue and make improvements on a commercial corridor and an industrial corridor. Anyways, there's a lot that we can do here to get ready for the LCI part of this, which is more the actual concept of how we want the corridor to develop. So I'd like to engage them to do the GIS part, and then I think once we get it built, that Chris can maintain a lot of it in-house once we get it created to begin with. So that's the recommendation.
Okay, so this is not to exceed $15,000, and this is a budgeted item, correct?
Right.
Budgeting from the general fund. Mr. Carter.
Would you please define the Highway 61 corridor?
It's what Chris was talking about earlier. We're gonna
Now tell me what all.
define it as wide and long as we can. So at the bottom, it's going to be the city limits. So that's the rodeo site.
All the way, not all the way.
That's the bottom, and then the top would be the end of the north bypass, probably.
So all the way through.
Yeah, so it's really not 61. It's 61, and then it's Industrial Boulevard, and then it's the north bypass. That would be the most,
Okay.
that we would look at.
All right,
We'll see. I mean, like right now, I can't tell you that I have any sort of preconception about the north bypass. Like, how's it going to develop? There's only 4 property owners, but that needs to start getting fleshed out. Like, y'all need to start weighing in on what do you want to see? Is it going to be residential? Is it going to be commercial? Is it going to be industrial? Is it mixed use? So that's at the top of it. And then as you come down, you go through our industrial park, right? Then you go through a residential piece right below the railroad. Then you go through a retail piece. Then you get to 20, right? Then you go through another commercial piece. You know what I'm saying? And as you get on, it's when you get below Walmart that things get iffy again. What's that going to look like? Is it going to be industrial? Is it going to be residential? Is it going to be commercial, some kind of mix? I mean, we need to have those conversations.
It's all
So
about planning.
I've always heard of corridor 61, but I've never really seen it defined. But now you're saying it's from the north end all the way through. It's going to be the path of 61 when we get through the north bypass. That's going to be 61 coming down industrial.
61 will no longer run through downtown and
Right.
that crazy.
It'll become north bypass, industrial, and all the way down south.
Well,
Okay.
All right.
Looking at
Ms.
Falcon's kind of proposal here, I mean, this is largely my ward, so you're talking about a lot of this is south of I-20, proposals of extension of roads to Reed Road, Bailey Road, Bay Springs, et cetera. So this is very exciting, and I'm looking forward to get involved in this process.
All right, anybody else? Okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 25? All right. Okay, so we're going to do something a little different. This time we had to ask the city attorney about 4 times before he finally convinced us it was okay. So I'm going to adjourn us into an executive session. We'll leave the room. We'll go down and
Aren't you going to do the consent agenda?
we'll go down and we'll do the executive session, but we will take no action in this meeting. We will just do this for purposes of information. Then when we come back tonight, if there is an action taken, we'll do it then. I'm going to, so the public comments aren't on here. So
Yes, they are.
where's it at? So my version don't have it. Okay. So I'm gonna open up for public comments. Did anybody sign up? Okay, so first let me open up for public comments. Is there anybody here who would like to give public comment? None? All right. So seeing none, we'll close the public comments portion of the meeting. I'm now gonna go through and read out the consent agenda the way I see it. And when I'm done, I'll see if there are any objections or if there are any changes. All right, you ready? Oh, you got something?
The only thing, before you go into the executive session, you're gonna have to actually move to go into an executive session. You don't just adjourn to go down.
Can we do that in a meeting where we're not, that was our whole question all along. We're not in a regular session.
You know, but you still do, you are in a work session, but you are in a meeting that is considered to be an open meeting under the Open Records Act, even though it is a work session.
Okay.
It is an open meeting under the Open Meetings Act. And from that, you have to move to go into executive session.
All right. Well, we'll do that in a minute. All right. Let me do the consent agenda. All right. Consent number 1, adoption of meeting schedule for Planning and Zoning Commission. Consent number 2, naming of road by the library. Consent number 3, amendment to special requirements for packaged distilled spirits licenses. Consent number 4, settlement of opioid litigation. Consent number 5, urban camping ordinance. Consent number 6, quest for legislation amending the Villa Rica Public Facilities Authority Act. Is that a request? Okay, that's a misspelled word. Okay, consent number 7, 2023 professional services agreement with RCS Productions, Inc. Consent number 8, amendment to wellness program agreement for biometric screenings. Consent number 9, replacement of Microsoft Surfaces with Apple iPads. Consent number 10, appointment to Recreation Advisory Commission. Consent number 11, auction of 2 older scoreboards from Vplex on Gov Deals. Consent number 12, fiscal year 22 budget amendments numbers 312 through 315. Consent number 13, fiscal year 23 budget amendments numbers 13 through 148. Consent number 14, write-off customer receivables. Consent number 15, resolution to execute loan number GF 2022008 with the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. Consent number 16, approve a resolution to execute modification number 2 to the promissory note and loan agreement with Georgia Environmental Finance Authority for $2,500,000 for the North Avenue Waterline Extension Project. Consent number 17, update utility rate fee schedule to include tap fees for townhomes. Consent number 18, resolution of support for the city's Livable Centers Initiative study grant application for the Highway 61 corridor. Consent number 19, emergency drainage repairs to Mirror Lake Parkway at the Mirror Lake Dam. Consent number 20, approval of addendum number 24 with Carter and Sloop to conduct water and sewer rate study. Consent number 21, approval of proposal from Keck and Wood for additional services related to the construction of the North Bypass. Consent number 22, approval of proposal from McIntosh Paving for Punkintown Road repair. Consent number 23, professional services agreement with Bobby Elliott. Consent number 24, approval of proposal to update the concept plan for Connors Road Park. Consent number 25, approval of proposal to create a master plan for the Highway 61 corridor. Does anybody have any objections to those or hear anything different? All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll prepare that. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Have a motion from Ms.
Second.
Marchman to go into executive session, a second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? That's unanimous. We'll
Mr.
go
Mayor,
into-
before, let me interrupt, and I hate to do this, but can we have the minutes reflect that it's for the purpose of going into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action of a public officer or employee?
Yes, sir.